Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Harte Feelings. Harte Feelings is a German sex comedy that tells the story of Charlie, an awkward high school student who's been mocked and bullied for his lack of male endowment since he was a boy. The only solace he can find away from his torment is when he spends time away from school with his best friend Laura. One day while they're hanging out, the two are unexpectedly struck by lightning, resulting in the two experiencing a sexual awakening, with Charlie's reputation in particular having changed as a result of his new endowment. The two friends then try to make it through their last year of high school while sorting out their feelings for each other. I can't believe I live in a world where someone actually wrote a script like this, let alone one that actually got greenlit by a major film company. It is one of the most immature and cringeworthy comedies I've seen in my life, on account of its overt sexual nature, complete mess of a story, and just being a total bore in general. Funnily enough, the main characters are the least of this movie's problems, though that doesn't mean they're good either. Charlie is nothing more than a bog-standard teen outcast who wants to overcome his insecurities and graduate with his sanity intact, which is relatable to some degree, but only a little bit. He emphasizes so much of his self-worth on his sexual prowess and how he can lose his virginity, which would be fine if he realized there were more important things to life than this, but he never comes to such realization. He continues chasing women and complaining about his sexuality at every turn, which made him increasingly more grating to put up with. On top of this, it doesn't make any sense as to why people bully him in the first place. I had an incident happen to me as a kid exactly the same as what happened to Charlie in the opening sequence, and nobody made fun of me for 10 years because of it. The whole concept surrounding his lack of endowment and how everyone shuns him because of this one thing is unrealistic, mean, and frankly just ridiculous. His love interest, Paula, doesn't fare much better either. She has the exact same thing happen to her following the lightning strike and has the same sort of sexual dilemmas as him, just from the perspective of a woman. She's essentially a female version of Charlie who's slut-shamed instead of celebrated for endowment like Charlie, which in theory makes sense, but it fails in execution. Paula fails to stand out in any way as a character. The only notable trait about her is the fact she has a dad who passed away and she's devastated by his passing, but his death is never explained or elaborated at any point throughout the movie. It's a cheap plot device used to manufacture sympathy for her character without building or connecting it to her arc in any meaningful way. The relationship dynamic between these two is so watered down to the point where it almost doesn't exist. Until events proceeded later on, I had no idea these two were meant to be love interests, and then once the story became more formulaic, it was only too obvious to see where things would go. Their chemistry and pacing is all over the place. I do sort of get why it's like this. The idea of two people being friends in school, potentially having feelings, then ignoring them, going their separate ways, and then being antagonistic, and then getting along again, it's messy, just as one might expect from an average high school love story. Except in this movie, their romance is more annoying than it is endearing. Much of that is because of the main gimmick surrounding this movie, which is easily the worst concept for a comedy release this year. I almost can't believe I'm about to say this out loud, but here it is. After the lightning strike, both Charlie and Paul's genitals start talking to them. I don't even know where to start with this. Both characters' genitals have repulsive personalities entirely focused on having sex with seemingly any living thing in proximity to them, which leads to awkward banter between them and their respective hosts. The idea is that the pair's inner voices will disappear once the two have sex with each other or with someone else so that they lose their virginities. The problem, however, is that neither character spends all that much time chasing each other and instead repeatedly fail to get with others. So the dialogue just gets more and more annoying while the story becomes more and more boring. The overt centralization on sex throughout the whole movie is immature at best and straight up gross at worst. It'd be one thing if it was just Charlie and Paula and nobody else, but it seems as though every high school age character in this movie exists only to get laid and do little else. I'm not sure if it's worse with Charlie or Paula's case. Everyone keeps harping on about the size of Charlie's penis and trying to glorify him because of it, while Paula is slut-shamed and seemingly gets off on it. There could have been some deeper subtext behind their mental health in this regard, but the way their conditions affect them is so inconsistent and irritating, I couldn't be bothered to care. Both characters have other love interests, which does shake up the variety of scenes and give something else for the leads to do, but they don't amount to much. Constantine, Marlene, and Francoise have zero personality behind being typical horny teenagers, so they add nothing unique to the already bland romance between Charlie and Paula. Moreover, the pacing, as I hinted at earlier, is all over the place. One moment Charlie is flirting with Francoise, then he's dating Marlene, then Paul is flirting with Constantine, and then she isn't, and then she goes to hang out with Charlie a bit, and it's like, guys, what story are you trying to tell? The fact that this movie is considered a comedy is the only thing worth laughing about. The movie simply isn't funny, as it resorts to a lot of lame slapstick and awkward situations surrounding Charlie and Paula's talking genitals, and it's just awful. Not only that, but the movie, as I said, is extremely crude at times with its humor and subject matter. There's one scene involving a dog that is burned in my memory forever with how freaking disgusting it was. I'm not going to spoil it so you can be spared the mental image, but if you know, you know. When the movie isn't trying in vain to be funny, it is ungodly boring to sit through. At its overly sexualized core, it's little more than a bad teen rom-com where the two leads go through the motions of mundane high school life and end up happily ever after. Somehow, even with the talking genitals and how ridiculous they are, it's still unoriginal. It does try to shove in dramatic elements with how the characters are affected by their genitals and rumors surrounding them, but it just doesn't fit. Charlie and Laura's inner voices come and go at pure random, so the effects in them remain inconsistent along with everything else in the movie. And the longer I kept watching this movie and thinking what to say about it, I just felt myself asking, am I really watching this? A man and woman with a talking penis and vagina trying to make sense of their sexual feelings? I mean, if it weren't for the misadventures of Eddie and Coke Man, I'd say this was the worst concept for a comedy I'd ever seen. And even then, it's not far off. It feels like it's trying to be a movie in the same vein as American Pie with how much it focuses on sex. The difference with that movie, however, was that it had much more variety in characters, funnier jokes, and a proper plot structure. Even with the sexual content, it wasn't always at the forefront, so when it did happen, it added to the entertainment. But this movie goes completely overboard with how much every character loves sex and needs it, and revolves their whole lives around it. It teaches a bad message about encouraging teenagers to just go out and have sex without any regard for the consequences. Not that the consequences are addressed to begin with, because the movie has the intellectual depth of a toad. Like seriously, the message the movie decides to wrap everything up with at the end is to treat others with respect, which would be fine by itself if uninspired, but then it's followed up with a note on not shaming people's genitals, which I feel like it should be a given. Personally, I think anyone who would mock someone's genitals for a 10-year period has mental issues. There's something profoundly disturbing about how much the movie fixates on genitals to the point that the entire story revolves around them. If this is what the movie's writer considers comedy, then let me just say, it sucks. Overall, Harte Feelings is a terrible sex comedy that is neither sexy nor funny and pretty much a complete waste of time. There's nothing wrong with making a comedy centered around sex, but this movie goes way too far with its premise and jokes, and at the cost of a complete lack of anything meaningful in terms of themes or story. If there's any hard feelings I got after watching it, it would be the desire to erase this movie from my memory forever. What did you think about this movie? Did you hate it as much as I did, or did you find some redeeming factors to it? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Harte Feelings. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Polish action drama, Mother's Day. Bye bye!